Hey everybody, this is Trevor, and thank you for coming to my show today. I really appreciate everyone who has subscribed, shared, hit the bell notification, liked, and all that jazz. Again, if you're new here, I really appreciate it. It would help out the Pioneer Spirit Homestead here if you could please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification, comment below. Okay, it really helps me out, and I truly, truly appreciate everyone that has thus far. And for anyone new here today, please, please do all that for me. I truly appreciate it. Okay, so now that I've begged for your help there, a topic that I've been thinking about for a little while now, and that is what did you gain or lose due to the COVID lockdowns, or the government lockdowns, as I like to call them? But either way, the government COVID lockdowns. What did you gain or lose? And comment below. I want to know everyone's personal story as to what happened to your life. Okay, was your life changed in a positive way, negative way? Personally, myself, both. I gained some things and I lost some things, and I'm going to get into what I gained and lost during the lockdowns. And I say during. Now, I am from Canada, and I can say right now that we're still in an age of government controlling what you can and can't do. So I'll get into. So now I guess I'll lead into what the gains and losses, and really freedom. Freedom comes into play in my world, and I'll tell you, freedom is something that I've always held close to my heart, and as I get older, I understand it more and more. And as I observe the world, observe and learn what's going around in the world, what's happening. I'll tell you, freedom comes to mind. It's like, are we living free or are we not? Okay? So, what did we gain and lose? Well, I lost the ability to work at a job that I would enjoy, that I would want to, because of Justin Trudeau, the dear leader of Canada, mandating that companies tell their employees, well, you have to do this. You have to take a COVID vaccination in order to secure your job, to secure your financial future, really. And in terms of that, for myself, truck driving. Now, it's still up for debate. I would still like to get the commercial driving license as of today's March 22nd, 2023. Still like to do it, although it's a very costly license. It's thousands of dollars, anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000, depending on what kind of the courses that you want to take. Just a basic up to the commercial driving license, the AZ, and if you wanted to take a few extra things in there, you could pay up to $15,000. So I'm still on the fence. Do I want to do it? Yes. Should I do it? I don't know. The dear leader of Canada, Justin Trudeau, at any moment could reinstate COVID mandates, and that would be a waste of money, but still thinking about it, still want to be a truck driver. I also spent 20 years, from 1996 to 2016, worked in 7 different hospitals between Ontario and Alberta, Canada, and as of today, I couldn't go back into working in a hospital because you do need to be COVID up to date with your vaccinations, so that I can't do that. 3 years ago, I started a gunsmithing course. I do enjoy that. It's a very useful tool, and firearms. And I've stopped taking that because Justin Trudeau and his wanting to remove firearms from law-abiding citizens such as myself, who have gone through the hoops to obtain legally the firearms through the training and taking of courses, and had gun range memberships and whatnot. I thought it would be a good career, but not. I don't think so anymore. Um, Not unless something major changes in Canada. That profession is not going to suffice. And at 50 years old, I don't look at getting a minimum wage job and stocking shelves at Walmart on a midnight shift is something that's going to be viable for my life and the family that I have right now. It's just it would not work out, and to be told that or have to do that is doesn't boost my spirits at all. I believe that every person should have the freedom to go into a profession. If you wanted to do the anything, if you wanted to stock the shelves at Walmart midnight, that's fine if you really wanted to do that. But to be told you can't have a job unless you take this certain medical procedure is absolutely anti-freedom. So I've lost the ability, and I would still say as of today, it still isn't looking good to be a Canadian that is unvaccinated from the COVID cough and flu season, whatever. So I truly have lost that and the freedom. What have I gained? What have I gained? Well, I've gained the sense of having my eyes open to people around the world and how people are sheep. Okay? How people are sheep. And it opened my eyes, and in a sad way, but I did get a good eye opener for how people deal with situations that we went through since March 2020, and we're still going through it. As of March 2023, I still feel that we are going through it here in Canada. And witnessing people putting anything over their face to get into a store, to get into a restaurant, to get into a sporting event, and it could be anything. You could go and buy a bandana from the dollar store, slap it over your face, and you could get into anywhere you wanted. And for an example, just for an experiment, one time I was not allowed into the grocery store to buy food for myself and my family. So as an experiment, I went back to my vehicle, got an old t-shirt out of the back that I used to clean the rims off with my Jeep Wrangler, and tied it around my face. And I was magically allowed to go in and grocery shop after that, having a dirty t-shirt tied around my face. It was an unbelievable moment. And it was unbelievable to me to see people actually following arrows on the ground in the aisles of grocery stores. It was unbelievable. People followed that. I was abused by not following the arrows, going down the aisles just as we always used to. I was abused for not using hand sanitizer. Verbally abused for not following the arrows, not using hand sanitizer, and financially abused by not taking a COVID vaccination. Abused. Gains and losses during the lockdowns. And something I want to point out too, I don't know if it's really a gain or loss, but it's just something I pointed out when I talk about going into the grocery stores. Eventually, the politicians did have enough foresight to realize, look, there's people out there that can't and just aren't wearing masks, and we'll let the big box stores, the big corporate conglomerate stores, your Walmarts, your giant Loblaws here in Canada, and all the grocery stores that are underneath the umbrella of Loblaws here, Superstore and whatnot, they realized we have to let these people in. As Justin Trudeau pointed out, do we tolerate the unvaccinated? Well, I guess they tolerated us enough to allow us to go into grocery stores and buy food. But yet your local mom and pop store, maybe a vegetable deli stores, man, they were railed hard. They were shut down. Your small businesses were just hammered with those COVID mandates, those lockdown mandates. Truly was a war on small business from government and corporations working hand in hand. So, yes, eventually I was allowed to go in and buy food without having to put a mask on. By the way, my beard was actually thicker and longer during the COVID lockdowns, and masks, when you have a beard like this, do absolutely nothing. And I can give factual basis to that because of my 20 years of working in Canadian hospitals, being test fitted for the N95 mask. They do not work with facial hair as thick as this. And when I was getting fitted for the N95, when I worked in hospitals, I had a trimmed up thin goatee, and I was still told it's not going to work well, okay? So masks don't work with a beard. So, masks, and it's come out now, masks don't work. And I'm just come out and say it too, the COVID vaccination, you could have 3 or 4 vaccinations and you can still catch and transmit it. So why are we still bothering with that in Canada? There should be absolutely nothing. If you want to work in a hospital in Canada, anywhere, okay, you should have always been maintained from the beginning that it was voluntary to take these kind of things. So gains and losses, freedom on both sides, freedom to see how people. I don't know if it's really freedom, but I guess it's more of a gaining, the eye opener, to see at least 80% of my fellow brothers and sisters and people around this world that just fell into line for all of those things. Again, the masks, the arrows, the hand sanitizer, the vaccinations. At least 80%, if not more, people fell into line, and they traded in freedom for safety. And it's Benjamin Franklin who said, people who trade in their freedom for safety deserve neither. Okay? You don't deserve freedom if you trade in your personal freedoms. Okay? You get now again, I'm not a fan of social contracts if you've been watching my show, but if we're going to adhere to one, I'm going to say, the top of the heap of the pile for social contracts would be the United States Constitution. Okay? If you're going to have a social contract, but when these things are null and void, okay, governments can come in and obviously, and in Canada we have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and it's in quotations because it's it's fake as far as I'm concerned. As far as my eyes were opened, I gained definitely the knowledge that here in Canada, your rights and freedoms are completely suspended when the government deems it an emergency. Okay? So the government's obviously going to suspend your freedoms, your natural born rights. They're going to suspend it because they're going to come up with emergencies, such as the Freedom Convoy that went into Ottawa February 2022. Justin Trudeau declared martial law under the Emergencies Act, is what they call it, but it was martial law, and it was shut down because there was people willing to enforce the government's edicts, okay? Whatever the mandates, the laws they had. There was a large amount of police and military too, I would imagine, that were just willing to go in and kick out people and kids in their bouncy houses, smash in windows of vehicles, and get them out. Even though it's been on record from the RCMP saying there was no weapons there. There was no violence. The only violence that happened was from the RCMP and other police forces that came in and trampled over people on riding horses over elderly First Nations people here. So I did gain more self-respect for myself. I definitely am. I feel like I've gained more strength, seeing what's going on and seeing what governments can do to people and what they are willing to do, what politicians are willing to do to the people within their country. I certainly had my eyes opened and gained a lot more perspective into how we don't have freedom. There's really no freedom, and that's what I come down to again. What did I gain or lose during the lockdowns? And it all comes to freedom. The freedom to travel. Okay, I have a passport. It's written, it says, the Queen of England, the bearer of this passport is given, you know, I'm given permission by the Queen of England. It's now the King of England. I guess we'll have to get new passports in Canada. But I'm given permission to freely travel, and I cannot be stopped. I'm basically on the same level as the Queen. The Queen is saying, you know, to affect the subject of the Queen is the same as affecting the Queen herself. Well, I could travel to see my family who live in the United States. So my freedom to travel, my freedom to earn an income for my family, all taken away. Freedoms to go, again, into most stores and shop was taken away. But again, the giant corporate stores, he was allowed to go in there, but that's it. Again, freedom to travel. Trying to go from one province to another in Canada. They had border setups. They had provincial borders. The provincial borders had police at them. If you couldn't, if you had a cottage in Ontario, Northern Ontario, and you're from Manitoba, trying to get to your they shut people down. It was like essential only traveling. And what again is essential? Oh, well, the government deemed essential workers as, well, mostly government workers. Surprise, surprise. And I'll maintain that everyone's essential, okay? Everyone's essential. The job you're doing is essential. Everything is essential. If you're earning a paycheck, you're exchanging goods and services to make, hopefully, people happy. You're essential. Not just government employees, not just the frontline nurses and doctors that were dancing, and those, all the police and everything else, all those frontline workers. It's not just them. It's everybody. Everybody who, you make a sandwich for somebody, you're providing a service and a good, and you're making someone happy. You're essential. Everyone is essential. But that was proven, null and void. I gained and lost respect for people. There's people that I just look at and I go, I can't believe you did this. You fell into line. And other people I'm like, I know out of fear. And that's another thing. These things, these cases, these pandemics, or they call them the polycrises, are going to continue to happen. I do believe that the COVID was an absolute experiment on us to see how many people in the world could politicians get people to fall into line out of fear. Fear, and it is true. I mean, economic fear. Holy smokes! I can't work here. Well, I better take the medical procedure. I better put the cloth over my face. The dollar store bandana. I better do that. And perfect example. So, what's going to happen with the next crisis? Are people going to actually say enough is enough? I just want to get up in the morning. I want to go to the job that I enjoy, or at least go to the place to earn some money, and come home and have dinner with my friends, family, or by myself, or just go to bed in peace at night, okay? What's going to happen? And again, this term has come up. It's polycrisis. Polycrisis, it's going to keep happening. Politicians are going to continue to keep coming up with ways to suspend your freedom in order to gain even more control over you. So, we saw during the pandemic, gains and losses. I talked about loss of freedom through, you had to have vaccination passports on your phone. You had to download apps to prove you want to go to see a hockey game, go into a restaurant. Well, you had to prove you were COVID vaccinated. And people did that. And I was very disappointed. Like, people, how they just fell into line and did everything the government told them to do. So lots of losses of freedom, gains of freedom. Well, I don't know. Again, I guess I just come back to the gains of having my eyes open to what will happen with the next crisis. And what's going to happen? Your rights are going to be suspended even further. I don't know how that's even possible. They'll lock you in your house completely. You'll lose. I think we're going to lose freedoms such as cash. Okay, banks are failing right now. The major banks, especially in here in Canada, United States, they're going to be okay. The government will print more money, bail them out. As were your local credit unions, independent, smaller banks, they're going to fail because people are like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm going to pull all my money out, all my loans or everything I got, transfer it to the major banks. And what's going to happen? I really do see the freedom of just to have cash. We should be able to take cash out of the bank, buy what we want. But what's going to happen is the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, is going to be rolled out. And then what? I mean, good luck trying to protest or do anything. Because what if you speak out? Perhaps I really think that the content I share here is probably not enjoyed by the dear leader of Canada, Justin Trudeau. And what if they say, well, Trevor, your credits this month, you don't get any. And you need the social bank digital currency, the credits, to buy food. So it's not like you can take it out. You can't take digital currency out and have it in your hand like silver and gold or cash. I truly believe the next crisis in these polycrises that the dear leaders of the world keep coming up with, it's just going to continue until people stop. I need my brothers and sisters out here. I need that 80% of the people who, at least 80% who kneeled before government for the lockdowns. I need you to stand up the next time. Just stand up and say, no, you can't do that. Because you've got to adhere to freedom over safety. And don't you feel better? Don't you feel better when you're not being watched or told what to do? I mean, we're adults. And it's like a small handful of strange adults are going to tell the giant throng of people how to live. And that's government. It's adults, strange adults you've never even met before, telling other adults how to live. Do you want to continue down that path? I mean, my path for that is, hey, we need to start voluntarily relating to one another, especially in personal relationships, in business relationships, of the exchange of goods and services. It needs to be voluntarily done. And again, if there is some kind of, scary cough and sickness that comes around, we need to voluntarily say, okay, if I'm sick, I will stay at home. But you can't, and look into it and say, hey, what segment of the population is most affected? Is it young people? Is it old people? Middle-aged people? Is it everybody? What? We need to really get into that. But we can't lock down people. We can't shut kids out. That was another important thing that came up during these lockdowns is young kids, they're learning facial recognition, smiling and frowning and all that. It's hard to do that when, adults and other kids around them had a face diaper slapped on. That was a loss. The loss of learning. But I'll tell you, I guess you could also look at it as a gain too, because a lot more parents were like, hey, this homeschooling thing's actually pretty good. It's pretty scary at first, but then it works out. Maybe that's a gain too. So maybe it was a gain, but I don't know. I think in the end, not many parents really want to do homeschooling, but I do think it is a beautiful thing. Again, I made a video the other day. Keep up on what's going on. If you got your kids in school, you got to keep up with what they're doing there. Gains and losses during the lockdown. Well, freedoms, I just continue to go on about that, and it's freedom. We lost. I mean, it's funny because every country really has a constitution. And did you know that China's Communist Party, China has a constitution as well too. Even the communist and socialist Marxist countries have constitutions, and what good are they if they're just going to be suspended in an emergency? So we as citizens cannot allow politicians to take away basic rights and freedoms during an emergency, or politicians are just going to continue to come up with a crisis. What's the next crisis? Aliens landing here? Some kind of fake alien invasion? That seems to be, that's been on the back burner and brought up to the front burner a few times in the past 5 or 6 years. So, what's good? What's the sense of even having a constitution if it's just going to be suspended anyways? At the time we need our rights and freedoms the most. Okay, like since March 2020, that's when we needed them the most. As an individual, I needed my freedom to go and travel, to work, to, the freedom to search information, the freedom of information to look and see what's going to work best for myself and people in my age group, late 40s, 50, older people. Everyone needed to have the ability to research, hey, what's going to work best for me? COVID really came out definitely by October 2020. And look, this was a disease, virus, or whatever you want to call it, that was really bad for people who were 70 and older. And, and every age group as you get down, it seemed to be less and less. So, hey, why didn't we just help out the elderly, right? I don't think locking them down was all that great, especially how many elderly people passed away and family couldn't see them. They just, put their hand up to the window. It's like the Wrath of Khan when, Spock dies and Kirk's got his hand on his window, and that, it's a very sad moment when people are dying and you can't physically hold them when they're dying. It was a fear of mine, being from Canada and having my parents in the United States, that I couldn't see them if they happened to die. And it was a very hard decision for me to go, look, I'm not taking a medical procedure by force. It's got to be voluntary. And again, I've said this in my other videos, but 20 years of working in hospitals in Canada, 7 of them, from 1996 to 2016, I never once took an influenza vaccine. I didn't take any vaccinations. Okay, I only wore a mask when I worked in the operating room to stop from blood splattering up my nose or in my eyes. Okay, that's all that was good for. And when I was sick, I stayed home. Or most of the time, you'd say to someone, you got the flu? Oh yeah, I just took some Dayquil or something. You end up going to work. I mean, come on. You got to have common sense during these things. Had I felt like I was going to get COVID in the beginning, maybe, you stay at home, you wash your hands, do that stuff that's common sense, but you can't shut people down from wanting to go out. You can't tell healthy people that, you got to stay at home. And again, it's come out too that the COVID vaccinations, you can still catch and transmit it, even if you've had it. So, why are you worried about me who's unvaccinated? Okay, and there's still people out there that are worried about someone like myself. Well, he's unvaccinated for COVID. I'm like, well, you've had 4 shots and you've still had it? Well, what are you worried about me? I mean, if you've had the COVID shot, you should be all feeling pretty good about yourself. So you should feel, I'm not going to get it then. So, gains and losses, I think it really comes down to freedom. I'm going to wrap this video up. This is one of my longest videos here, but I think it's a very good subject to talk about and to get people thinking. What have you gained and lost since, March 2020 for the COVID government lockdowns? Okay, again, I appreciate everyone who's likes and shares and subscribes and comments below. I appreciate that. Please do that for me. And like I say, it helps keep the lights on here at the Pioneer Spirit Homestead. So again, comment below. Tell me what has happened to you since really March 2020 for the government COVID lockdowns. Okay, I hope everyone's doing well and stay free.